Someday I will be prepared to do this the proper way. Let's tweet this out. That's not even what I clicked on. Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay, let's just tweet that out again. Living the best life. Okay, this was a very last minute decision that I made because I was bored last night and too lazy, really, to edit the video that I should have put out today. My March wrap up, April TBR situation. So technically, not a well organized buddy read. Technically, very chaotic energies, but also I don't think anyone is expecting anything different of me. So I'm going to be reading Crescent City. I'm going to start over again because I only read like 22 pages. My goal for this week is to finish Crescent City. So that's what these streams are going to be. They're going to be 2 sprints, 20 minutes each of me reading Crescent City. If you want to join in, I think the page breakdown is 160 pages a day, today through Friday. That's with my edition. I have the Waterstones version, which has like 799 pages. So the break is like a decimal point, but I think the 160 should get us there. So that's what I'm going to be reading. You are, even though this is going to be like a buddy read with me, Crescent City stream situation, I can't force you to read Crescent City if 1, you don't have access to it, or 2, it's not a book that you're interested in reading. So you are more than welcome to read something else. I will just be reading, like I said several times, Crescent City. If I get to a point during this stream where I legitimately want to DNF the book, then I'm just going to DNF the book. I'm not going to continue on with the streams if I'm hating it. The first 22 pages I thought were decent. They were all right. They were okay. But I was getting some, I don't want to say questionable energies, but questionable energy from the thing. But we're gonna try and tough it out. We're gonna try and get through it. I don't think that in the 40 minutes that we'll be sprinting today, I'm gonna get my 160 pages read, which is fine. But that's just the goal. So no one is here currently that I can see. So I'm going to go ahead and start my first sprint. If I see people come in while I'm doing the sprint, then I will acknowledge you. Maybe, like I said, this is very chaotic energies. I scheduled the stream late last night, but it'll also be up on my channel later. So if you missed the beginning, the start of it, like, no one's ever going to know. It's fine. That said, let me get the timer on the screen. Let me mute This book is a trip. I mean, I feel a little awkward having a conversation because, as far as I can tell, no one is here. No one is joining in the conversation. But I got to what page did I even get to? I got further than the last time I started. So I got to page 32 pages in 20 minutes. I'm okay with that. I still have this sense that I had the first time I read it. I still feel that a certain character is not going to get to even like the 100-page mark. I would be very surprised if that character lived that long, and it kind of breaks my heart because I still like this character a really lot. As for everything else, I think that I have very minimal experience with Sarah J. Maas. I read Throne of Glass. That was it. I still have like an odd time picturing this world. It is very much like, I think it's meant to be urban fantasy, but a lot of it still feels like your typical Middle Ages, medieval, standard run-of-the-mill fantasy novel. But I know that they have modern technology like cars and things. I don't know. I also just get really... There's something about guns appearing in a fantasy novel that I just kind of like... I don't like when fantasy does the thing where, because there's magic, human technology doesn't work. I think that's a little... I don't like that, but I also just don't like, oh, we have guns in this fantasy world. I'm like, I mean, I guess you have to find a way to level the playing field for your human characters, and having them sticking to like swords and bows, that's not very fair. Like that is kind of shit. But there's just something about a gun that, I don't know. Even if I know that you also have a cell phone, I'm just kind of like, the gun is what is not for me. Apparently we have I know that they're like, the main love interest has not appeared yet. The love interest that has all the fan art and stuff, he hasn't appeared yet. So the love interest that I'm about to meet, his name is Reed Redner. And I think that there's some... Heather at Aphrodite Reads talk about this a lot, where I think she thinks that a lot of people don't like love triangles because it's very and I don't think we're getting a love triangle here, just to be clear. But authors don't put work in to make the potential love interests like equal to each other. Like, it's always very clear who the author wants the main character to get with, and that that's why people have issues with it, because it's very clear what's going to happen. And I think that when you name a character Reed Redner, like, no one is rooting for a character named Reed Redner. You know what I mean? Like, even like when you have a love interest whose name is Reed Redner, and we're introduced to them by saying that the sex with them is like pretty average, and average is being generous to them, I think you're just immediately shooting that character in the foot for no real reason. Like, I just don't get it. I mean, if you don't like the character that much, but you think that having a non-end game love interest in your book is a necessity, I think that they should really be written with the same kind of energy that you would write the actual love interest. And I haven't gotten to the actual love interest yet, and I know that some people have complained that Crescent City is not as sexy as they thought it was going to be, considering it is an adult novel, which I also think it being an adult novel has, I don't know, it's making me feel some kind of way. Maybe I just have too high of expectations, because I've heard a lot of people really praising Sarah J. Maas's world building. And even again, like going back to the hodgepodge of how I feel, it's like, I know it's meant to be urban fantasy, but it's reading more like a Middle Ages fantasy, like medieval fantasy. It's just, I don't really get adult vibes from this book. I I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe like the vibes I think are just a little on the try hard side of things. Like the book opens with our main character hung over. By like page 10, she's talking about how high she was the day before. On like page 26 or something, she's talking about how her fridge is full of like a variety of alcoholic beverages and everyone has their favorite beer brand. And I'm just kind of like, that's just like, it's cute, but it's like I let me take it back. I didn't walk into Barnes and Noble and pick up this book. But if I had walked into Barnes and Noble, I would hope that I would be sitting in the adult section. We went into quarantine and like lockdown mode before I could go in and like see where Barnes and Noble had shelved this, but it's in the adult section. Like I understand this is for adults. And I think that a lot of people who are already familiar with Sarah J. Maas were already under the assumption that she wrote for an older YA audience at best, and adults like end of sentence period. So I don't know if I need like, it's not that I don't think that you can't open your book with a character hungover or talk about a character getting high or talk about how their fridge is full of beer. But I don't know. I also, again, like I know Sarah Maas is known for her fae. I knew going in and our main character was going to be half fae. I still don't understand the fae. I don't know. I've read a lot of, okay, a lot is not, that would be a lot. I've only ever really read Holly Black's Folk of the Air trilogy. Cassandra Clare had fae. So far, I think Cassandra Clare has done the best with the fae, even though I think as the Dark Artifices went on, it was increasingly less enjoyable. But I still don't really have a sense of how the Fae operate, and I really don't think I'm going to get a sense of how the Fae operate here. I think that they have an interesting... I think there are elements of the world building that are interesting. Like, you aren't just born immortal. There seems to be like a process each of our creatures have. I mean, it's the same process for all of our creatures. But they have to go through it. They're not just like, I was born a Fae, I'm immortal. It's like, no, you have to like do this whole special ritual. And I think the fact that the ritual was introduced and the fact that a certain character was made super powerful, I think that was, again, an indication that like that character was going to die. Like, we have a ritual to protect our immortal, like to become immortal. You have a super powerful side character. They're not even the main character. And we have a terrorist who has just been released from prison, who is a human and has issues with all kinds of, supernatural creatures. So it's very obvious that this character is going to die. And part of me is like, I really don't need this character dying to motivate our main character. I think that I got hints of the larger plot here. From what I remember, this was meant to be like urban fantasy murder mystery. And we just got word of our two first victims who were apparently eaten alive, low key. Their bodies were shredded and just left in the university square, which I thought was a little interesting. But again, I don't really know if I'm invested in that storyline. I don't know if I'm going to be invested in any of these storylines, if I'm being honest here. I'm very much still trying to pull myself away from this character that I don't think is going to make it and find elements of Bryce that I enjoy. But so far, I just don't care about her. I don't think she's a bad character. I just don't think that in the 30 pages I've been with her that, like, it just feels like she is there to... It doesn't... Like, Bryce doesn't feel like the main character. And I think that's part of why the side character has to die. I think that it's an odd choice to make the side character so powerful and foreshadow their life, like what is going to happen to them so early on in the novel, when I think it's just a weird choice, I think, as an author, to have you get invested with a side character that you readers are going to know is going to die immediately. Like, they're not even gonna, like, it's not even a sense. It's not even like a sense that, oh, this character could make it to like page 400. Like, no, again, this character is not going to see page 100. So I think it's an odd choice to have me be invested with the side character so early on in the novel and not the main character. Like, our main character, I don't understand why anyone would like her, if I'm being honest here. But I feel like I've said everything I need to say about this first section. I'm going to try and do another sprint. And when I say try, I'm just going to do another sprint. So I'm going to pull up the timer. I might actually, even though no one is here, I might just sprint and do all 160 pages. We'll see how I feel after the second sprint. I don't know. Let's see here. This is what I need to do. I need to bring the timer back, mute the mic. This book, this goddamn book is... So I'm on page 50. I want to say like 52, maybe. Maybe it's just page 50. I'm not really paying attention. Page 61. So I was hella off. So I have 100 pages to go for today's, to get to be able to finish it on Friday. I do. It's not that I don't like this book, because we are still... the book is 797 pages, like I said. So page 61 is still firmly in exposition territory. But at the same time, I'm very I'm kind of over it a little bit. I'm kind of just in this space where I don't care. So more predictions. I don't know if this is gonna turn out to be accurate. This could be a spoiler. But like I said, like, it's just prediction. I don't actually know. But I feel like because of all of this secrecy about who Bryce's father is, he has to be the Autumn King, man. Like, he has to be a very high-ranking Fae. There's literally no other explanation as to why it would be like this big secret situation. I also continue to hate this thing where... So Bryce, our main character, is half Fae, and this is why I really can never fuck with fantasy, at least written by white people, the way that I want to fuck with fantasy. Because one, even though I think there was mention of like one black character, she had dark brown skin. I think she was like half fawn or something. I think she got some sex in the club. I was really just not paying attention during that moment. So we have a brown character. But I really don't like... One, I don't like, oh, you're half Fae, there are slurs and shit. Like, do I think that would probably exist? Right? Probably. I think that if, vampires and shifters and, magic... I mean, people get all kinds of press when you talk about magic-wielding witches because people are practicing witches. You know what I mean? Like a storybook witch with that, not like whatever witch exists in our reality. The Fae, if they were to like come out of hiding tomorrow and like be like, oh yeah, we all exist, haha. Do I think that there would be some choice words about them? Probably. Would they face discrimination? Probably. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, sure. But I just don't fuck with it in a book. I'm just kind of like... To me... And it feels silly for me to say this because I am still very much in a place where I really don't care to read about white people writing about racism, about like actual marginalized people. Like, I just don't think I've seen an author have that range. But I think substituting actual marginalized people for your fantasy creations, it's just not the look. It's 2020. It's not the look. I think using the supernatural to explore racism, to explore xenophobia, to explore discrimination, we've done it. We've seen it. We have it. Like, don't want it anymore. Like, I don't think that I need to have a world where the Fae and witches and shifters and all other creatures of the night and whatever have you exist peacefully with humans. I think that that's also a little bit unrealistic. I think that there would definitely be tension there, but I just don't need that tension to include slurs, to include like, woe is me, oh, I'm half Fae, people think I'm a prostitute and I sell my body. Like, that's just not what I need. I don't need it. I also want to take this moment to address Connor. So in 60 pages, we've had two love interests. We had Reed Redner, who, again, I was saying, automatically was not ever going to be an endgame choice because his name is fucking Reed Redner. Never in the cards for Mr. Redner. He was a boring human man who had a boring dick game. Sorry to hear that for him. Then you had Connor, who was introduced as kind of like this stereotypical wolf shifter man who was like kind of creepy and felt like entitled to having a date with Bryce, even though Bryce was like sexually attracted to him apparently, but had like never, who was repeatedly telling him to like, yo, I'm not trying to go on a date with you. And he was blowing up her phone while she was on a date with somebody else. And I just felt kind of like the story was more interested in him. But then we got to page 61, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I don't think page 61 is going to be very good to Connor. I don't think that other character that I already thought wasn't going to make it, I don't think they're alone. I don't think they're alone anymore. I think we're about to see a massacre. Which, sure, I guess, fine. Like, again, I think these are all really weird choices. I think that Sarah J. Maas spending so much time building up all of these side characters, while in the 61 pages that we've been with Bryce Quillian, she's spent almost all of them hungover, getting inebriated, telling us about the time she was inebriated before, stumbling home drunk. Like, she is just, like, all of her experiences have been clouded and shaped by some kind of substance that I'm just kind of like, I don't care. So I don't really feel like I'm connected to her. And then we're building up all of these side characters and all of these relationships that are going to be immediately erased. Like, these aren't even, like, relationships that I'm going to see for, like, 300 pages of this book, 200 pages of this book. Like, it hasn't even been 100 pages. And I feel like every character that I've already grown attached to that Bryce has known is literally about to die. Like, that, like, I don't get it. I have to be really honest with the one person watching this. I don't get it. I don't understand the motivation to, like, craft all of these characters, to have them exist, and then just be like, you know what? I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to kill all of these characters before 100 pages into the book. Like, what? What? I also think that it's an odd decision to only have, like I said, I haven't watched anybody's review of this. I haven't I've purposefully not read reviews. I've just seen, like, Twitter comments. So I know people have said that there is only, like, one sex scene in this book towards the end of the book. And again, it's not as sexy filled as people thought. But the way that, like, Bryce just wants to get fucked and apparently doesn't get fucked, it has me feeling some kind of way. Because I'm like, at this point, I don't know if these murders are really that interesting to me. I don't think that, because the Briggs character or terrorist character wanting to, like, kill all of these non-human magical species people and, like, lead this human rebellion, I think is a very stock fantasy plot. It's not that I'm going to say that I've seen it done before, but I think that I've seen I've seen versions of that, right? Like, it's not like a wholly unique concept for, like, oh, we want humans to, like, you know what I mean? So just, like, let her get fucked. Like, why? Like, if that is, like, that seems to be Bryce's main conflict, is that she wants to get quality dick and she can't get quality dick. And I have to read 600 pages of her wanting it. Like, why? Why could you not, like, why can't she get it? Why? Do I want to read about it? Not really. I mean, I don't think I'm going to enjoy whatever sex scene I get. I don't think Sarah J. Maas is going to deliver a sex scene that I'm going to be, like, here for or enjoying it. But that seems to be Bryce's main conflict. Like, that seems to be the driving conflict of this. Like, that's her only problem so far, is that she is really horny and she really can't get quality dick. And so, why can't she get it, Sarah J. Maas? Like, why? Why can't she get? Maybe it'll be answered. Maybe in like the next couple pages after I read about what I think is going to be a massacre. And I feel like I should be invested in it because, again, like, these are the side characters that were getting built up. But even like, I don't see how that's really going to push the story forward. I also don't know, like, do I care about Bryce investigating her friend's murder? Not really, because she's already allegedly been investigating something else. Because, like, before the events of this book even started, I guess, like, some super important artifact was stolen. Like, there was a citywide power outage, and this super powerful, super important relic was stolen. And allegedly, Bryce is on the hunt for this because she works at like an antiquities dealer, and her boss really wants this. We've seen zero investigation of that. What we've seen is her going on the date with the human man, Mr. Reed Redner, who apparently has no dick, and Connor to him back to her house where she lives with like a bunch of wolves, and Connor wanting to get with her. And then she dumps Reed and she goes to the club, and now she's going home and the door has been torn off her apartment. Like, we haven't even seen her investigating the thing that you said she was investigating, because she's been trying to get some quality dick. And now I'm supposed to believe she's going to investigate the murder of her friends. No, I don't believe it. I do not buy it. Okay, let's see here. I actually have comments. Let's see here. I'm happy that you're enjoying this, because I would feel a little silly just ranting to myself about this. I don't get it. I mean, I guess it's not poorly written. So Sarah J. Maas has that going for her. It's not bad writing. I just don't understand what's happening. I'd also love to know what you are reading, because I didn't think a lot of people were going to come and join me for this little impromptu buddy read along situation. But feel free to let me know what you read in the comments. I probably haven't read it. I feel like every time I do one of these streams and I'm like, let me know what you're reading in the comments, it's like, oh, it's a book I've heard of, but I'm not ever read it, or it's a book I've never heard of. And then I lie and I'm like, let me add it to my TBR. And then it don't happen. I added on Goodreads, but I think we all know that Goodreads want to read list is like not really a TBR. I will probably also do, I think I'm going to do one more. Okay, I've read this one maybe. Okay. I think I'm going to do one more 20-minute sprint just because I really want to know I kind of want to know. I kind of want to see what is happening. Oh, yes, I have read that one. That's a good book. I like that one. That's good. Part of me wishes it was like an ongoing series and I could just continue to read that story forever. But I also don't think it would be as impactful if it was an ongoing thing and had like 3 million volumes. I'm also very sad that all of his other work is very pornographic. And so my library just does not carry it. And I also just can't bring myself to buy it because I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to enjoy it. But yeah. Yes, it is very sweet. I think that was also what kind of surprised me was I read that, right? So I read My Brother's Husband, Volume 1, and I was like, this is too cute. And so I immediately requested the second one from my library. And I was like, this is even better. And then I was like, well, obviously, if this man is super talented, let me see what else he has. And literally everything else is just hardcore porn. And I was like, sir, you have the range, apparently. Apparently you have it. But yeah, I'm hoping that there's some other So he'll come out with something else that my library will actually purchase. I don't know. But my library also has like copies of Docile, and I feel like Docile is very graphic. So like maybe it's because it's like drawn, they're not trying to fuck with it. I don't know. I don't know how library distribution works. But I think I'll do another sprint because I'm interested to see what's happening. I'm interested to see if my predictions are correct. I mean, I know that one of my predictions is right because I did message someone who I know had finished the book and been like, this was before I even started my reread. And I was like, does this happen? And they told me that this thing does happen, but I don't know if everything I predicted is accurate. But I'm also going to be a little bit sad. I think the thing that would disappoint me the most, I think, of everything I've predicted, I'm not super interested in Sarah J. Maas's book, so I'm here to see. See, I felt the same way. Like, I wasn't super interested in Throne of Glass. I thought the first book was okay, but I also read it in 2019, fully understanding it was like 2012 fantasy. Like, I didn't expect a lot. I didn't get a lot out of it. It was a perfectly fine read. The ACOTAR books, I don't think have ever really appealed to me, but I do like the cover redesign. I know that no one else likes. I take it back. There's like a handful of us. I think they have really nice cover redesign, but I don't think I'm ever going to read ACOTAR. I think Crescent City appealed to me because it was billed to me as urban fantasy. And usually urban fantasy I can get behind. So like I enjoyed the Shadowhunter books. I enjoyed Adam Silvera's book for what it was. And I'm enjoying Crescent City for what it was. I just think that her mashup of urban fantasy is very different. Because I feel like it's still not entirely in our world. It's very much a world that she's created, which I think is an odd choice for something that is supposed to be urban fantasy. Like it still gives off very standard fantasy vibes, but we know they have cell phones. We know there are cars. We know they have guns. Like it's very strange. Like it doesn't seem set in, like I don't understand like why go through the trouble of having an urban fantasy and creating a whole continent, it's weird. I think it's an odd choice. I also don't particularly like some of the phrasing. I don't like the Norse hell with like one L. I don't like having to read God's Damned when I don't feel like any of these gods are expounded upon. I don't like the what is it? They have like a crucifixion square. Like it just like it's pulling from all of these places that I don't fully. Yeah, it could, like late 90s, mate. I don't know. It doesn't even feel like it's not in our time. Like they have internet. It's just a weird mashup. Like I think that I don't know. Maybe because Sarah J. Maas comes from this place where she had to create things for Throne of Glass, and she created things for ACOTAR. I feel like it. Part of me feels like Crescent City could be part of that because I think that ACOTAR and Throne of Glass are set in like the same universe, and I feel like Crescent City is also in that universe. It's just like further along in the timeline, and maybe that's what it is. Like maybe that's why some of these choices were made, so they all fit within, which is fine. Like I don't have any problem with that. I just don't know if I would call Crescent City urban fantasy, even though it is maybe like modern fantasy, but I wouldn't call it urban. I think that when you say urban fantasy to me, I'm expecting it to have, like, I would be able to recognize it. I wouldn't go into an urban fantasy expecting it to be taking place on a whole other continent, like an entirely made up continent with all kinds of different, like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe an adult fantasy that's like maybe adult urban fantasy does this and YA fantasy that's urban doesn't. I don't know. I'm not well read enough in the genre, but I feel like the expectation is it's set in a reality people would vibe with and understand. So that's just my take on it. I'm also, like I've said, I'm not a big Sarah J. Maas reader. So maybe people who have read Sarah J. Maas understand everything that's going on here, but I'm just kind of like, this seems like an odd situation. But I'm ready to do another 20-minute sprint because I think I should at least be able. Okay, I'm happy that someone understood because I didn't think I was explaining that very well. But it's weird. I don't know if I would not recommend it. And I don't know if this is really the best place to start with Sarah J. Maas for other people. Especially if it is connected to those books. I think that's, I don't know. I have to do some research when I'm done reading. But it's not like there's a lot of starting places you have with her. She has, yeah. So let me grab the timer and let me mute myself. Could we stop? What is going on here? Add that. Let me mute. And I will see you guys in 20 minutes. this book. So during this last sprint, I managed to finish part 1. I'm on page 96 now, which fun times, I guess. But so a lot of my predictions, I think, are coming true here. So I guess shout out to me, but also, like, I don't know. I just want to read a fantasy where I'm not like, I'm sure that I've read fantasies where I was not guessing the outcome so early on in the book. And I still don't know where this book is going to end. But I know where the first part ended, and so pretty much everything that I had guessed happened. And then we jump forward 2 years. Like, my bad, 22 months. So not a full 2 years, but it's like you spent a good 80 pages setting up characters that weren't Bryce to then skip forward 2 years in the development and introduce a second perspective. Like, I don't know what Sarah J. Maas is doing. I haven't heard overly negative things about Crescent City other than, like, they wanted more sex. And so far, I'm right there with it. So far, like, Bryce has just said that she's been having sex with these people, but I'm still like, that seems to be your major conflict. So I feel like this isn't it. But also, it's just like, who is Bryce? Who is she? I've almost read 100 pages of this book, and I don't know who she is. So all of these people on Twitter who are really loving Bryce, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know. I don't see it. I'm not on the Bryce squad, because the first 80 pages had very little to do with her own development. And then I think even though we skipped forward 2 years, I can't imagine that we aren't going to explore some of that. I don't know what I was expecting from Crescent City, but so far it has delivered none of it. Like, which I guess is good. Like, there's been a surprise at every turn in the road while reading this. But at some point, I would like for us to just drive straight for a second. Like, I did not need the random second perspective from I think it's our last love interest. Reed might come back into the picture at some point. Like, his family is poised as, like, really influential, and I feel like Sarah J. Maas might bring him back to, like, play in with what is going on in the narrative. I would hope so. Otherwise, like, there were just so many characters that were introduced that I had to read about that literally meaningless, and we just skated past everything. So I hope there's some exploration of that 2-year time jump. I don't know what it would add to the story, but I'm hoping for it anyway, because I don't know. It's still a solid 3-star book, I think. I tend to start reading a book with the assumption it's going to be a 3-star and just go up or down from there. It's messy, so I guess it gets points for that. But I'm also like, every character that we have met is, like, super special in their own way. Like, Danica was, like, the most powerful shifter to ever exist on the face of the earth. Hunt is the most special angel to ever exist since, like, forever. No one's ever seen power like Hunt has. Our girl Bryce has, like, no magic, very like, baseline magic cafe levels of power. Like, they're barely registered, but she just did some super intense shit. Like, every character we've met, every one of them has been their super special version, whatever creature they happen to be. And I'm just kind of like, why though, Sarah? Like, not one of them could be average. Like, not one. Like, at this point, I just want some average people. And I know that like part of the fun of a fantasy is the fact that they are like the best at what they do. But at some point, on some level, I'm kind of just like, just give me the average person. Like, just, I'm okay with them being average. I don't see, that's where I'm kind of, well, one, I'm happy I'm not alone on the 3 stars thing. I think a lot of people do that. I don't think I'm like super special, but still nice to be validated. And that's where I'm at. Like, Hunt has a partner who's also an angel and they seem to be average, but it's like, we're not going to follow his partner. Like, his partner is I'm sure, going to do whatever they do. There's also just a bunch of like random names for shit, and I don't understand it. I think that like I don't think Sarah J. Maas really understands what urban fantasy is, or maybe Bloomsbury was just out here marketing this as something that it's not, because or maybe I have a fundamental just not understanding of what urban fantasy is, but I feel like I was under the impression that he was like a police officer like situation, but they have like some random like 18th Legion, and I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, just give him like something normal. Like, I think that's what I really want from this, is just something that feels normal, because none of this feels like urban fantasy to me. It just feels like fantasy that happens to have modern technology, and I feel like that's just not enough to call it urban. Like, I feel like it's just not, like, it's not really contemporary. It's not really any kind of situation that is recognizable. They just have modern technology, like, which is fine, I guess. But I feel like urban fantasy should be accessible, and this book just doesn't feel accessible. Maybe it's because we have like every kind of creature known to man, and for the first 100 pages, Bryce was interacting with a lot of them. Like, we got to see shifters because I was Danica. We know that her boss is like a super powerful sorceress who used to be a witch. Apparently, they're very different. I don't understand how they're different, but they're separate. Hunt is a fucking angel. Again, super powerful, super special. No one's ever seen him harness powers like Hunt. We had a wraith who has been cursed by, I think Micah is like the governor or like an archangel. I don't really understand it. Like, there's just so much stuff that is going on. We have so many different kind of creatures. I'm kind of just like, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe this was a bad idea. And I know that, like, technically Cassandra Clare is, again, she technically has a bunch of, different creatures. She has werewolves and vampires and warlocks and her whole Shadowhunter people. But, like, it was very clear, like, who does what. And here I'm just kind of like, I don't understand the purpose of any of it, except to, like, wouldn't it be cool if they all existed together? And maybe it would be cool, but I also feel like it would be cool if I understood what was happening. Like, maybe it would be cool if the dumb bitch reading your story could, like, follow what was happening. Or, like, maybe it'd be cool if your main character was actually the main character. Or, like, maybe it'd be cool if somebody in this world wasn't the super special version. Like, I think all of those things would be cool, but Sarah J. Maas disagrees. So I don't know. And far be it for me to tell Sarah how to write her book. Like, I can't tell an author how to write the story that they want to write, but I just don't understand. I don't see the purpose. I don't like how the book was marketed. I feel like I was kind of lied to. But so far, I think I'm the only person that feels that way. I think everyone else that has read this has been able to understand what was happening. Um, the fan art seems to be there. Like they seem to be getting it. So maybe I'm just overthinking everything. Maybe I'm thinking it's more confusing than it really is, but I don't fully understand literally anything that's happened. I take it back. Like there's been some moments where it's very clear what is going on, but I don't know. So far into this book, I think that the editing wasn't helping Sarah, and we'll see. We'll see. It's still very early on. I don't think that we're ever going to see Bryce investigate that hidden artifact ever again. I don't think after reading what happened at the end of the first part, I don't think we're going to see Bryce investigate that either. So I don't know what we're going to see Bryce do. It feels like Bryce being the main character was just like, I don't know. I feel like almost that Sarah threw like a dart at a list of her character names and it hit Bryce. And so she was like, okay, I'm going to tell the story from Bryce's perspective, kind of. But she's very much the character I think that Sarah J. Maas was least invested in. My version is only 797 pages. So it's not quite 800. So even if I finish Crescent City, which I'm still not sure that I will, I'm still reserving the right to DNF it. But so far, it hasn't hit a point where I want to. It's still shorter than Queen of Air and Darkness. And I finished Queen of Air and Darkness, even though that was some tomfoolery. So I think that because I read Queen of Air and Darkness this year, and Crescent City isn't even longer than that, I would feel some kind of like this would have to be really, really terrible for me to DNF it. Because if I could have, like, if I could go back and DNF Queen of Air and Darkness, I probably would. Because once I got past the middle part of Queen of Air and Darkness, which is the part that's like in an alternate timeline and people have issues with, that was the most interesting part of the book. And when I got to the part at the end where we found out everything about the Parabatai bond, I thought that was just utter nonsense. So if I hadn't read Queen of Air and Darkness this year, Crescent City might be easier for me to DNF, but I'm like, it hasn't hit that absurdity level yet. I'm just kind of, at this point, I'm just reading Crescent City in hopes that Bryce fulfills her need of finding quality dick, because she still hasn't found it. Like even after the time jump, and we like the first sentence after the time jump, talking about how she hooked up with this random person in like a bathroom or something, even his dick was average. So almost at this point, I'm invested in her finding at least some quality dick, and I'm hoping that it happens. I don't think it's gonna happen with the love interest that we met, because I don't care about this man. And the person I think that she could have had a quality relationship with isn't in the story anymore. So I really should, but I'm one of those people that's really bad about DNFing. Most of the time, if I DNF something, it was like unconsciously. Like I just set the book down, sort of with an intention of picking it back up, and then I just never do. I think the last thing I consciously DNF'd was Little Women. I was supposed to be reading that with Erica over at the Broken Spine, and that book was terrible. It was there was no enjoyment in it. And I know that Louisa May Alcott, I know her last name is Alcott, I don't know what the middle name is, but I know that Little Women was like not her favorite novel, and her heart wasn't really in it. But I think you can really tell that on the page. And so how anybody read that and gets any kind of enjoyment is beyond me. It also just doesn't make sense as a narrative. And the fact that you want to tell me that's a children's classic and that you want children to read that doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. I think that Greta Gerwig's movie was cute. it was, I could at least get through it. I was like, I could understand, like once I saw the narrative, I could understand how people could enjoy it, but I just don't think that the book executes that narrative. And so I'm sure that the movie versions of that are just better. And so you should just watch the movie versions and find your favorite movie version and never read Little Women because it was terrible. Also, I don't understand why anybody would want Joe and Lori to be together because that just doesn't make sense to me. Don't get it. I don't understand the ship. I don't understand why there's a whole book coming out about it. But I also just don't understand Melissa De La Cruz. I think that Melissa De La Cruz has a book coming out far too often. I've never read a Melissa De La Cruz book, but she's one of those authors that I just don't trust because she just puts out too much for me to think that her writing can be that good. And maybe that's terrible of me because, again, I've never read any of her books, but I think that I just don't trust it. I don't trust that she can execute well enough to justify having so many books come out in a year. I just don't. People really like Jay Kristoff, and I don't think he's good enough to justify having more than one release in a calendar year either. So I'm old. I mean, maybe. I mean, if you read and I am all for other people DNFing. I'm all for other people enjoying things that I don't enjoy, but I don't think I'll ever understand it. Like, I don't think I'll ever understand anyone that read and enjoyed Little Women. And I mean, take it back. I know as a kid, I read an abridged version, and the abridged version was cute. When I was reading the unabridged version, I couldn't get into it. When I was listening to the audiobook, I couldn't get into it. So, like, I'm sure that there are people out there who have read and enjoyed many a classic that I just didn't vibe with. But I also just don't. I don't think Little Women is that classic. I don't. I think it's a good, like I said, I like the story. Like, I liked the way Greta Gerwig framed it. I was happy to have been able to experience it. But if that hadn't been a movie that was coming out, I don't think I ever would have picked up the book, like, ever again in my life. It was never something that was calling out to me. But I think I'm going to be here for like 5 more minutes just so it's a nice even 2 hours. And then I'm going to go. But I will be back again tomorrow because my goal is to read all of Crescent City live. So there'll be some more reading sprints tomorrow. I'll probably will do 4 reading sprints like I was doing in January is a lot. Like, that's a lot of reading. I think 1 hour of solid reading is about as much as I can handle in a given time. So I might do it a little bit later tomorrow. I don't know. But I like the noon stream. So that's probably what I will do. I know that it will not be earlier because I cannot promise to be awake any earlier than noon, or at least awake and like in a space where I can read a book and actually comprehend what is happening, because I could barely understand what was happening now. And I'm hoping that as Crescent City goes on, not only will it make sense, but I'm hoping there'll actually be a plot. Like, I know that I feel like the first death that we read about and then what happened just before the end of the first part, I feel like they have to be connected, but I'm also like, do I really want to read about that investigation? Like, do I really want that? And the answer is probably no. I feel like the answer to that question is definitely I don't want to read about it, because I didn't want to read about it in Lady Midnight when I was actually reading Lady Midnight. And then when... So, I don't know. I feel like supernatural murder mysteries in urban fantasy just don't... I feel like maybe that's kind of a trope. Because isn't that what the whole... I feel like there's another urban fantasy... What is this? Let's read. I'm going to probably finish Interview with the Vampire by tomorrow. So I'll probably... Okay, I've never read Interview with the Vampire. I've also never read anything by Anne Rice. So you have to let me know how good it is. But because I have no idea. Gonna participate in a quiet read along with Onyx Pages tonight. I didn't know that Onyx Pages was doing a read along tonight, but good to know because I might have to look into that because I hadn't. I'm terrible about keeping up with what is happening on BookTube. I can barely keep track of my own content and putting stuff out. The only reason I'm doing these live streams this week is because I don't think I'm actually going to find the energy to edit my wrap-up TBR video. I need to stop filming those kinds of things in the middle of the night. Like, there's just nothing. Like, it's just full of chaotic energy, and I just can't be bothered to edit it. So going live and reading Crescent City on stream is probably about as refined as I can get this week. But I'll have to look into that because I still have like 60 pages I need to read today in order to be able to finish this by Friday. But I'm going to go now. Thanks for coming to hang out with me. I was feeling a little bit strange in the beginning of the stream because no one was here. But you do what you got to do. And I'll see you around later. But